Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm doing a review of Purple Haze, a solo and cooperative narrative wargame set in Vietnam. And disclaimer that I was provided a review copy of this one. In the core game of Purple Haze, you progress through a 9-mission campaign with a group of squad members that can get injured, can get killed, can also level up. And the game is a mixture of travel across an overland map where you're trying to manage your time and your stamina, and also having narrative encounters and random encounters, which play out in quick narrative passages, kind of choose your own adventure style. But then sometimes in missions, usually at least once, you'll have battle with this tactical grid system where you're trying to defeat the enemies or at least make them retreat. And both skill tests and attacks are resolved using an interesting die matching system. So let's discuss 5 key things to know about Purple Haze. And that die system is my number 5, the least important thing to know from the review, but still pretty important. And this is a mix for my taste because it's a cool system. It does lead to a lot of variety in results, but it's also kind of confusing. So you're rolling these focus dice, and you're trying to match up numbers with them. Each of these white strike dice that matches a focus value will be counted as a success. Then you also have these crit dice that can be worth double successes. And if you get 2 crits on the same value, then it's a critical success. But if you have dice that don't match any of the focuses, they can themselves become matches with each other. It's a cool system, and again, it gives a lot of granularity and variety to like different attacks, and you have a lot of ways to add bonuses and have penalties. But also, it's kind of hard to understand. It takes a little while to get used to quickly reading the results, so it's a bit kind of overcomplicated for what it does. For my number 4 point, I'm looking at your squad and how you manage them and how they change over time, and this is a pro for my taste. So at the beginning of the campaign, you get to select some squad members from a bunch of different people. Now, they aren't that different. They have slightly different stats. They have different abilities, but honestly, I found that they didn't differentiate themselves that much. But what's really cool is the campaign structure that goes along with the squad, because you are leveling them up as you go, but you're also dealing with injuries that can kill them during a mission and more long-lasting conditions that can show them suffering from the horrors of war. And I found myself getting really invested in these people and trying to keep them alive and feeling sad when I actually lost one and had to replace him with a green rookie who wasn't nearly as good at his job. Now, one more caveat, though. You'll see just from this example, this is like mid-campaign, that you can get like a lot of items, and before each mission, you have to decide like what your loadout is going to be. So you just have like a lot of tokens going around. And then when you add in experience and damage and stress and just everything, it can be a good amount to manage. So just be aware that it's not always smooth going when you play with the characters. For my number 3 point, another pro, I'm looking at the narrative and kind of the tone and the campaign in the game. So again, there are 9 missions in the core box, and they're pretty varied. There are some that felt somewhat similar, like when you're going out on patrol again, but the stuff that happens is very different. And even within a given playthrough, I was never able to, in a given mission, to see everything, and there were like choices to make. So I think the replay is pretty good. I bet you can play through the entire campaign 2 or 3 times and still feel like you're seeing new things. Now, just a content warning, this is Vietnam, no holds barred, so think Platoon or Full Metal Jacket for sort of corollaries in terms of tone. So there's profanity, there's sometimes very graphic depictions of people being killed and their like mangled bodies. But if you're ready for that kind of harsh look at the horrors of war, then I think the narrative is really compelling here. There's a lot of cool things about moral choices, really compelling stuff, really enjoyed it. But my number 2 point, which is a mix for my taste, is the traveling around and sort of managing your stamina in the game. And you might be surprised to learn this, but you spend a lot more time doing this, is kind of moving around without any narrative encounters, than you do actually kind of doing the narrative and the choose your own adventure stuff. And often you have really strict time limits in missions, so you have to kind of consider the terrain you're going over. You can rest to get your stamina back, but then you're wasting time, so often you'll have to force march and kind of hurt your soldiers just to try to get the mission done. So there are a lot of really cool, interesting choices there. But also I found, except for the few missions that did things very differently, a lot of the missions felt somewhat similar, just like walk to the next number, see which encounter you have and what happens. And also on the potentially negative side, each time you move, you're rolling a threat die, and sometimes it's going to not increase threat at all or even lower it, but often it will raise threat up. And the swinginess of the experience from this can really change your game. Now, that can be a good thing for variety or not. But yeah, I found some missions were just like super easy because I never got out of green just from lucky rolling, and and sometimes like I was getting into battles way more often and things were very tense. So it does give the game an ebb and flow, but if you're a luck averse, you might not enjoy that aspect of the whole movement puzzle. And another thing about the game that surprised the heck out of me is my number one. I think the most important thing to know about the game, because you're kind of spending the most time doing it, and that is the combat system. I thought this was a narrative game, and it is a narrative game, but the combats are like really involved, really tactically engaging. They also take a while though, like each of them can be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, especially when you're getting used to the system. And how it works is it's an initiative system, so when you take actions on your turn, when this initiative tracker is on your side, it'll move to the enemies. Then they'll take an action, depending on how much they do, it'll move back to you. And you're kind of going back and forth like that. The bigger actions you do, the more time you give them to take actions. But choosing how to use your weapons, choosing how to use your limited ammo is just great, is tense. Your people are getting blown up. There's a lot of variety in what the enemies can do. They can play these random tactics. Their activations will change game to game. Now, there's not much variety in the units you have, and I did find for your own units, you always have an M60, you always have a grenade launcher, so things tend to kind of fall into similar patterns as you play more. But that doesn't change the fact that the tactics are friggin' great. It's a really awesome system, and even if it does kind of detract from the more scripted narrative of the game, I think it creates a lot more emergent narrative as you're trying to keep your squad members alive and take out dangerous enemies and such. So overall, I've had a really good time with Purple Haze. I think if you are a fan of narrative games that really put you in a harsh situation, something like this War of Mine, I think it might appeal to you. And also if you like really good tactical combat, the system here is surprisingly impressive. But on the other hand, if you want a more immersive story with more choose your own adventure and like tons of depth, the story beats are a little bit quick here. And if you want a combat system that's quick to resolve, it's more involved here than you might expect. So the extremes the game goes to might not work for everyone. And if you want to see the game in action, check out my playthrough of Mission 1 I did a week or two ago. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.